Hello and welcome to my new podcast, Innervation. Innervation was inspired by my previous podcast, Silence, where over the course of 2 years, I spoke every week with a total of 100 women from science, technology, engineering and mathematics, or STEM. I kept all of my guests anonymous so that they could talk openly and honestly, and boy did they. We discussed their experiences, what they've learned along their life journeys, and their hopes and ideas for living fulfilling and contented lives. The conversations on Silence were always so raw and transparent, and surprisingly, not just about STEM, but also about everything. The topics that tended to come up were also the same topics that I often discuss with my mentees, or I'm asked about after a talk I've given in schools and colleges. So I thought, rather than keep these topics closed, how about throwing them out into the world and letting everyone hear and engage in issues that are clearly important to many of us, if not all of us, myself included. So I've sifted through all the episodes of Silence to bring you my favourite sound bites. Each week on Innervation, I'll be reflecting on the talking points that are actually pearls of wisdom from the women in STEM on Silence that I found particularly provoking, inspiring and empowering. I hope that they resonate with you too. This week is all about bullying. So the guests that I've had on Silence have often talked about the bullying they've experienced as a result of being a bit different. And because they've all been women in STEM on Silence, they've often felt like the odd one out for just being female, but also for various other reasons. So bullying's come up a lot. I'm going to be talking about the effects of bullying and what it does to people, even if the bullying is really, really subtle, and how to spot that you're being bullied, but also trying to understand why bullies bully in the first place. Bullying seems to come in so many different forms, and so I try and figure out what to do if you think you are being bullied, and why bullying is just really not good for everyone involved, including the bully. And I try and outline some ways where you can really stand up to bullying and basically try and come up with a simple solution to dealing with the bullying in your life. So let's start with this from episode 50.
Anything from background discrimination, gender discrimination, just any kind of discrimination, bullying. These things are just not unheard of.
Being bullied can really affect someone so much that it can be the main motivation for the decisions they make in life. I think what's sad about the person that gets bullied is they often put all of their effort into trying not to show that they're hurt and trying not to let the bully affect them. And using all of that energy to stand strong whilst being bullied can often lead them down different life paths, because rather than using that energy for good use or to become better or stronger or greater within their own skin, they're actually using that energy to just not fall apart as a result of the bullying. And sometimes bottling up the pain that you go through when you're bullied can end up leaking out at other times in your life, whether that's many years later or less time than that. Like often when you are bottling up feelings and emotions as a result of being bullied, it can really come out sideways in not so great ways. And it can really affect the way you end up growing and evolving as a person. It might have caused you so much grief that you end up kind of not enjoying social situations, developing some kind of eating disorder, maybe you end up being paranoid about the way you look. Like it can really take people down some very self-destructive paths. There are many cases where people that are bullied do end up coming out of it with flying colours. They end up succeeding and growing a strength and thicker skin than before they were bullied. But often it can really change the course of someone's life. And that's what my guest talks about in episode 78.
I think I was bullied for being clever.
Yeah.
I was bullied for being a person of color, if I'm being honest. Just lots of things. Kids can be nasty, and it got to the point where I actually dropped out of mainstream
Oh,
education
wow.
when I was about 16. Lots of things were going on, sort of on the side of
Mm.
that, but the bullying was the last
Yeah.
straw, and I didn't think I was going to go back into education at all, and had a couple of years to think about things, and then realize actually I really enjoy being academic. I really enjoy doing this. The boat hasn't passed for
Oh,
me, so to
good for
speak.
you.
Which is, yeah, thank you. So went back as a slightly mature
Mm.
student and redid my A levels. And I think along that process, it was that doing something which I thought would have been the worst possible thing in terms of I've ruined my life now. I'm not in mainstream. I haven't followed the path that everyone else follows, and then actually, oh, it's fine. Okay, the worst possible failure in my mind has happened. Let's build life up again.
Why does bullying happen? What are bullies like? Well, in my experience, bullies seem to come in all different shapes and sizes and forms. And often when I'm actually being bullied, I don't realise it because sometimes it can be really, really subtle or disguised in a really sweet and nice way where you walk away from it and you just think, that didn't feel good, that exchange. That really, really didn't feel good. And the fact that bullies do come in all different forms can be very confusing. But what I found in my own experience of being bullied is that all bullies have one thing in common, and that's that they're really insecure with themselves. Often bullies don't look insecure on the surface. They may be the most popular person in the class or the most successful at work or someone that appears to be really flying high. And so often bullies come across as being so intimidating because they are the most popular person around. And actually, it's all a facade. No one who is truly successful or truly accomplished or truly amazing would ever need to bully. Bullies bully because they feel threatened, they feel insecure. Somehow deep down they feel weak or scared or vulnerable. Things that just make them want to pump themselves up. And the only way that they can pump themselves up is to make others feel bad. So bullies are actually masquerading. They're weak and they're trying to make you feel weak so that they feel bigger than they actually are. My guest from episode 15 puts this plain and simply.
I think so. A lot of the drive behind the behaviour was actually insecurity of their own, that they felt quite threatened. And, most bullying comes from people who feel threatened.
Because bullying comes in so many different forms, it's really hard to identify whether you're even being bullied. I tried to keep things simple in my own head, and I just say to myself, if someone makes me feel bad, I simply just try and avoid them. Now, this can be really difficult if the people that make you feel bad are people that you can't avoid. Maybe they're family members, or they're people that play certain roles in your life that you just can't change. And if they are people you can avoid, then great. Move away from them. You don't have to be mean. It doesn't have to be ugly, but you can just spend the least amount of time that you have to so that you're not surrounded by any kind of negative or toxic exchanges. Now, if they are people that you do have to associate with, then it's not up to you to change the bully or stop the bully from bullying. The pressure comes on you to actually change the way you respond to the bully. And that can be really, really hard. My guest from episode 90 explains their experience of it.
I saw from certain people on Twitter, and it did make me think, I wonder if I was a man, whether those comments would still being made. And I guess it feels a bit like bullying. Is rather than getting angry at the process of paper writing or how slow it is, it almost feels like they're being very personal to you. And you take that to heart. And I've had to learn how to not take that personally and just brush it off and just carry on.
So a bully only wins when you buy into their bullying. If you believe what they're saying, then you've absolutely lost that war. Believing the bully is the worst thing you can do for yourself. And that's where it gets tough, because believing that the bullies are not right really takes a huge amount of knowing who you are and believing in yourself. The reason why it's tough is because often the bullies are saying and doing what they're doing because they've got a tribe of people backing them up. So if they're saying something mean, they probably wouldn't be able to say it to your face on their own. They've probably got people backing them up, and that can be really tough. But standing up to a bully involves you having a very, very strong sense of self, really knowing who you are, really understanding what makes you tick, and really accepting your differences from most people, or what makes you unconventional, is the key to not taking the bullies personally. We all have differences. Some people show them more than others. Some people can't avoid showing their differences because it may be the colour of their skin or how much material wealth they have. But really believing that whoever it is you are is okay is the key to standing up to bullying. In my experience, everyone has qualities and gifts and talents, and it takes time to really find out what those are in all of us. I have been around for a while, and I'm still getting to know myself and understand where my skills lie. You know, there are obvious ones that really showed up very clearly early on, but as I go through life and I get involved in different experiences, maybe do different jobs or speak to different people, I learn more about myself, which helps me with my own self-esteem, because the more you get to know yourself, the more you can stand strong in your own skin and know who you are. Knowing who you are is such a powerful tool to standing up to anyone who challenges you on who you are. That's why I'm a huge supporter of spending time on your own. As some of you may know, I absolutely love meditation, where I get to spend some time just being with my own thoughts and observing what I'm like when I'm just with myself. And that can be a great teacher to getting to know yourself well. But I think also spending time on yourself, like maybe going to the cinema on your own, or, you know, just doing activities where you don't have to do what other people suggest, or you don't have to people please, or you don't have to impress, can really be a chance to kind of just see what you're like and to just experience yourself. I have to admit that following my own path and doing my own thing has probably been one of the most empowering things I've ever done. And that seems to have been the case with my guest from episode 56.
There's been times when I've wanted to quit, when I've wanted to walk away from it and go, this is too hard. I'm just going to go and get a normal job. I don't even care what kind of job it is. I'll just work at the supermarket because this is too hard. Of course, there were those moments. But there's also been a lot of fun along the way as well. As a part of my business, we run events, and I'm in business with my sister as well. So we do a lot of travel together and have fun doing different things. So it's been hard, but it's also been rewarding. And I just love working with women. I think that's been the most important thing. I've identified that, you know, my purpose and my why is in supporting women and being part of their journey to grow their businesses. And I think if I hadn't had such a strong purpose, I wouldn't have continued through those challenging times.
The sad thing about bullying is that it's so limiting, not just for the person that's being put down and repressed by being bullied, but also for the bully. Because anyone who bullies is really not in a place to grow and evolve and adapt to changes and different perspectives, and to welcome the unconventional, to be open to things being different or unusual or unique. And that's really sad. I think anyone who is a bully stays stuck in their own ways and is not open to change. A couple of guests on Silence were subject to this, and luckily they didn't believe what they heard and went on to study and work in jobs that were typically for men. This quote from episode 26.
And I did get a lot of bullying from both the students and from some of my teachers in secondary school growing up, where they said it was a man's job.
The irony is that that guest went on to follow her dreams to become an astronaut, and she proved to not only herself but also to all the naysayers that she could do exactly what many people thought she couldn't. Really inspiring. Generally, I think it's so much easier to believe in yourself when you've got people in your corner, people who are really behind you, who understand you, who believe in you. I think it's so important to have that kind of unconditional love. When you have that support, it's so much easier to get through difficult situations where you're being picked on or people don't get you. And that's why if you don't have family and friends who are rooting for you, it's important to try and seek out mentors or role models who can take an interest in your life and be there for you when you're a bit unsure about your own direction. My guest from episode 18 talks about some unusual support that she had.
As me, I've had the good fortune in working with a lot of male engineers who have been as supportive, if not more supportive, of me and my career development than some of my female peers.
Whilst I'm all for mentors and role models and people who are in your corner, I think it's also really important to say that it's so fundamental to be careful about who you choose to be in your inner circle. They always say that you can count your best friends on one hand, and I really have lived that. The people that I'm absolutely most closest to are very few and far between. I know a lot of people, but I wouldn't necessarily count them as my best friends. And I think what I have experienced in my own life is that when I'm feeling a bit uncertain about myself or feeling a bit vulnerable, that can be the time when you lay yourself open to being preyed upon, especially if you're a woman. You know, people might want to jump to your rescue. They may want to take advantage of the fact that you're not really that strong in your own skin at that point when you're being bullied. And so sometimes victims of bullying can actually be open to more abuse and can be taken advantage of because they are so desperately needing that support and encouragement from other people. So be vigilant about the people you let in to your life. Be careful about who you choose for your inner circle. Make sure they are people you can trust and people that honestly, genuinely care about you. Not in a way where they're getting something from you or it's some kind of transactional relationship where you do this for me and I'll do that for you. But it's this kind of unconditional giving from these people that are in your inner circle, where if you didn't give back to them, there wouldn't be this animosity, but you would want to give back to them out of love, just because everything is just based on a genuine love. I think sometimes it can be really misleading as to who should be your role models and who should be your mentors. Not just because we're on dangerous territory if we're feeling a bit fragile, but also because sometimes we think certain people should be role models and mentors or just people in our corners, and they're not. You know, maybe there's some weird, twisted reason why people won't help or why they actually want to help and take advantage. And that's what a guest alludes to from episode 18.
Being in software engineering particularly is that there are so few female engineers that sometimes we get in this habit of thinking of each other as competition rather than ourselves as our own competition for progress.
Okay, so one way of handling the bullying is to try and find people in your tribe. That sounds great, but it's not always readily available to us, and it does actually take time. Finding people that are in your tribe really is a journey. I certainly have had people in my tribe who are now not in my tribe because we've all just changed and moved on and want different things, and that's okay. I find that collecting true friends can just be an ever-growing, evolving process where you connect with people more than you ever did before just because you're different. I think the key to finding strength outside of yourself is to always gravitate towards situations that are really loving and kind and nurturing. And I think the only way that you can find that enriching and uplifting and inspiring type of friendship circle is to actually be loving and kind and nurturing towards yourself. My guest in episode 37 had a real experience of this, and she told it just how it is.
I think it's important to follow your dreams. And it's also very important to surround yourself with really, really good people and put those relationships first. I think that was a mistake I made when I left Houston. I had such great relationships, and I moved up to Chicago for a promotion and left, that whole support network behind, and that was a mistake. So when you find a place where you've got a network of people who love you and care about you and support you, really, really treasure that and really value that, and don't walk away from it, because it's hard to create that again. I lived in Houston for 11 years. I created that network. It was awesome. Moved to Chicago for 12 years. And in that entire 12 years, I never really created that again. And then I moved to where I'm at now in central Illinois. And fortunately, I've been able to create that network again. And have, a lot of good girlfriends here. So you don't walk away from that.
It definitely is some weird universal law that always seems to hold true, that the way you treat yourself is how you end up treating others. And vice versa, the way you treat others is a real indication of the way you treat yourself, which is an important point for parents, actually, because the way parents talk to their children is how they grow up to talk to themselves. I think there was a quote by Carl Jung that says, the way you talk to your children becomes their inner voice. And it is just one giant circular pattern. And in the middle of that circle is love. So to stop bullying and to stop the toxic cycles of bullying begins with ourselves, as so eloquently put in episode 21.
So I think in my younger days, I was very self-critical. It didn't matter that somebody else was scolding me, for example, like my mom or whoever, outside, a teacher, whatever, because I would scold myself much worse. I was, in a way, the inner voice in your head. And that voice was kind to others, but harsh to my own self. And somewhere I read about this, and I think reading has opened my world up with Maya Angelou and all these wonderful, role models that you have, powerful women. And one of the things, one day it struck me, somebody told me this, and I said, be kind to yourself. And then I started doing that a little bit more actively. You have to do it actively. It doesn't just happen one fine day that, you get all this confidence. No, you have to work at it.
Yeah. And it is work, isn't it?
It is. It's a constant being your own therapist, your own cheerleader. And in fact, one day I even wrote it down on my, I have a little scrapbook that I scribble notes on when I'm upset or something. And long back, so a few years ago, I wrote it down, like, I am my own cheerleader. Who cares if nobody else cheers me? I will cheer myself.
Be your own cheerleader. I absolutely love that. Thanks for listening. Please do subscribe to this podcast and rate and review if you can. I'd love to have your feedback about this episode you've listened to and any other suggestions for future topics on this show. It's all about self-discovery and evolution on Innervation, so if there are any issues which you feel are holding you back from living to your fullest potential, please let's delve into that. Be loving and kind to yourselves, and I wish you all a great week.